Oh boy, I'm so glad that we don't have to worry about COVID-19 anymore. Am I right? Am I right? I mean, just look at the new cases. The 7-day average right now is 126,000 new cases a day. That actually seems like a lot. But if you look at the deaths, the deaths are way down. There's only like 400 people dying every day on average for the past 7 days. That's hardly anything. So basically, we probably don't have to worry about COVID-19 anymore, right? Well, I'm sure it's not going to be like last summer where we thought we were done, but then the variants took off, and then all of a sudden we weren't done. I'm sure that will never happen again, right? And I'm sure that we are all done with disease outbreaks for a very long time. Am I right? Am I right? Oh God, monkeypox. Look at this kid. Look at this child, this poor child. And look at this map of the United States. This is the map of the confirmed cases of monkeypox in the United States. This was updated yesterday, July 13th. And you can see almost every state in the United States has at least one confirmed case of monkeypox. But to be fair, like a lot of these states don't have a lot of cases. Like they only have like a couple, and even the states that like have a lot of cases like only have like more than like 100. But still, it is a little concerning, like because the United States usually doesn't get like, as far as I know, the United States usually doesn't get like any cases of COVID. The United States doesn't get any cases of monkeypox on the regular. Why all of a sudden is monkeypox popping off? Oh, and also I'll show you the graph of the world. This is of cases of monkeypox worldwide, right? And you can see that a lot of cases are a lot of countries that have historically not had monkeypox. You can see in this dark red color have monkeypox all of a sudden, like Spain, Germany, the UK, all have more than 1,000 confirmed cases. The United States, sad. Okay, so let's back up for a second. What is monkeypox? I have this article from the CDC website. Oh, the CDC, everybody's favorite organization. And I'd like to read to you a little bit from this webpage. Monkeypox is a rare disease, not for long. No, I'm just kidding. It might. I don't know anything. I'm just joking. Monkeypox is a rare disease caused by infection with the monkeypox virus. Thank you. Monkeypox virus is part of the same family of viruses as smallpox. Monkeypox symptoms are similar to smallpox symptoms, but milder, and monkeypox is rarely fatal. Monkeypox is not related to chickenpox. So that's the good news, is that monkeypox usually isn't fatal. And therefore, you probably won't die of monkeypox. That's what I got from this article. That's the good news this week. Is that you probably won't die of monkeypox. That's sad. That's the good news. And you can see that one of the symptoms is a rash that can look like pimples or blisters that appear on the face, inside the mouth, and on other parts of the body like the hands, feet, chest, genitals, or anus. The rash goes through different stages before healing completely. The illness typically lasts 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes people get a rash first, followed by other symptoms. Others only experience a rash. And you can see some of the other symptoms here: fever, headache, muscle aches, and backache, swollen lymph nodes, chills, and exhaustion. Why all of a sudden is there this big monkeypox outbreak in the first place? I'd like to read a little bit from this article. U.S. stumbles in monkeypox response. Some public health experts and patients say more needs to be done and warn that mistakes made during the COVID-19 pandemic are being repeated. The monkeypox virus is less infectious than COVID-19. That's the other good news, is that the monkeypox virus is less infectious than COVID-19, and is so far mostly affecting one community: men who have sex with men. Oh, it only affects gay dudes? Oh, forget it. We don't need to worry about it, right? I should clarify that I am joking, that I am being facetious. And also, it doesn't only affect MSM, men who have sex with men, but I'm going to say MSM because it's easier to say. It does affect, like, everybody, but it disproportionately affects MSM. I'm going to take a little detour. Why does it mostly affect MSM? And this article talks a little bit about it. So, researchers at the UK Health Security Agency, the UKSHA, for example, asked patients to fill out questionnaires. Of 152 who did, 151 said they were MSM. A team wrote in a technical briefing published on June the 10th. The remaining patient refused to answer. Other countries have seen similar patterns. So disproportionately at MSM, even though it can affect everybody. Quote, sexual networks among MSM are not different in nature from those of other groups, but a core group of people are much more densely connected than people outside the MSM community. They change partners more frequently and are more likely to have several partners at the same time. These things occur in all sexual networks. It's just a question of degree. And in a densely connected network, the virus is less likely to hit a dead end. It is entirely possible for this epidemic to rage among a subset of people just because that subset is connected in a network differently than everybody else. The idea is to get a sense of how many people report symptoms that are consistent with monkeypox and how are they connected. So there you go. But let's venture back to the other article about how the United States is doing a terrible job with monkeypox. I'll continue reading a little bit from this article. Lena Wen, a research professor of health policy and management at the George Washington University, as well as Baltimore's former health commissioner, told The Hill that she has felt a sense of deja vu. Probably the most significant one to me is the lack of testing. We saw during COVID that every case was found like the canary in the coal mine, that they were really just the tip of the iceberg. And that was because there was such little testing available. Why haven't we learned our lesson? So actually, the confirmed cases of monkeypox is almost certainly an undercount. That's comforting. Oh, this is the other thing. I don't think I've mentioned this. Unlike COVID-19, monkeypox is not a novel virus, and it does not spread as easily, and is largely transmitted through close skin-to-skin contact. And although it is currently affecting relatively few people in the United States, advocates and scientists worry this outbreak may spread out of control. One man in New York said it took nearly a week before he was able to get tested and possible contacts' names. Clinics in major cities like New York and Washington, D.C. have quickly run out of available vaccine doses. And New York gave no warning before announcing its own vaccine push late last month, running out of doses within hours, with no word on when more shots would be available. Health authorities maintain that monkeypox does not pose a threat to the general public, and the mortality rate for the virus is low. Eric Toner, a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for the Health Security at the Bloomberg School of Public Health, says that this recent monkeypox outbreak could be very well a sign of an age of epidemics that the world is entering. As people interact more and more with wild animals, whether it is wet markets as food or moving into their habitats because of population growth, we are going to see people get exposed more and more to exotic pathogens, Toner said. Overall, Toner said that he felt that the response had been adequate considering the limitations, noting the inherent difficulties in measures like contact tracing, as well as the swift manner in which the federal government deployed vaccines and placed orders for more. I don't think that they have been that slow. I don't think it's the case that they haven't learned lessons from COVID-19. All right, so that's all I really want to read. Let's break this down. I think I'm really happy that this article talked about the increase in outbreaks that is likely going to happen because of more incidents where humans interact with wildlife. And even though that monkeypox specifically isn't fatal, well, it's not going to be that long before we have another outbreak which is fatal, and then we have COVID-19 all over again. We probably should start working to make sure that that doesn't happen, or is not as likely to happen. But that's just me. Or we could just keep doing business as usual, and it'll probably work out right. I think that's all I really wanted to say about monkeypox. Pretty scary stuff, but it's a little depressing, so I kind of want to move on to our next story. Pregnant Texas woman driving an HOV lane told police her unborn child counted as a passenger. So, this was a Dallas area woman that was pulled over for driving alone in the HOV lane, and when the officer asked why she was driving in the HOV lane by herself without a passenger, she says that she pointed to her stomach and said, "My baby girl is right here. She's a person." However, the officers were not buying it. He said, "Oh no, it's got to be two people outside the body." And basically, it goes on. The woman ended up being cited, but she's planning on fighting it in court. Because as you all know, in Texas, all abortions are now illegal following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade and the pending enactment of state trigger laws on the practice. And I'm sure that a lot of this, the reasoning for enacting an abortion ban is that the fetus is like a human life, right? So I think this woman is trying to argue that the Texas Penal Code is inconsistent. Where does it say? I think it says something like exactly. But it definitely is inconsistent if that's the argument for an abortion ban. Because if the law considers a fetus a person, and therefore we need to ban abortion, then why isn't it considered a person in other ways, including like tax benefits, and including things like this, like the HOV lane? I don't know. It's very, very strange. Very, very complicated times we all live in. Let's move on to, speaking of Texas, let's move on to our next story, which is about Texas. The Texas blackouts. I don't know. I don't think they've actually been having blackouts. They've said no rolling blackouts are expected this week, so that's incorrect. I apologize. But there is some real strain going on the Texas energy grid because of record heat in Texas. Punishing heat wave across Texas, which is driving record high power demand. And I think it says last Monday, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas set a new unofficial peak record of demand. Total power demand reached 78.3 gigawatts, surpassing the previous record of 78.2 set on July 8th. But so they ended up having to ask residents to turn off their large appliances, like not run them in between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. I guess that's when energy demand peaks. So they asked residents not to like run dishwashing machines or like laundry, like the washers, the you know, the washers and dryers and such things like that. Also, nearly all industrial-scale Bitcoin miners in the state shut off their machines in response to the call, representing over 1% of the total grid capacity. Why? It's so upsetting every time you hear about how much Bitcoin mining, how much energy it takes. I hate it so much. It seems pointless, essentially. And it's also making it harder that the wind turbines are not producing as much as they could because of low wind. They were only producing 10% of their capacity on Monday, which is considered a low wind generation day for the summer. So they did ask residents to turn off the large appliances and such, and turn off their Bitcoin mining operations. And almost half of 1 gigawatt, or 50 megawatts, of demand dropped between 1:56 and 2 p.m., which is when they asked everybody to start turning off their large appliances, etc. 500 megawatts. So I guess it was pretty successful. And of course, this article does point out that the reason why, at least part of the reason why Texas is so hot, because of climate change, which has made Texas heat both hotter and longer lasting. The average daily minimum and maximum temperatures in Texas have both increased by 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 125 years. The state just saw its hottest December on record since 1886. Texas is facing extreme heat conditions this year, which much of the state under temperatures above 100 degrees. Do you remember, like last year, back in February of 2021, when there was a huge winter storm in Texas? And Texas was having such a hard problem dealing with the energy demand because the energy grid in Texas just isn't winterized. And so they had to do rolling blackouts on the state so that some people didn't have energy or any power for 45 minutes. So a big reason about why Texas is having such a hard time recently meeting their energy needs is because Texas is one of the few I think it's the only mainland it's the only mainland state in America that has its own power grid. And I think the reason is because they don't want to have to comply with federal regulation of the energy grid. But when you're hooked up to the energy grid, power from other states can be generated and sent to your state if you're connected to the federal power grid, right? I remember reading back in February of 2021 that the reason that Oklahoma didn't have as many deaths or the reason why Oklahoma didn't have to have rolling blackouts is because it was connected to the federal grid. Although I tried to look online, I couldn't find any confirmation of that. But I remember reading something about it. I'm like, if I was in Texas, I would probably want to hook up to the federal power grid, considering all of these catastrophes, or near catastrophes in this case. The James Webb Telescope. Finally, we are getting our first images from the James Webb Telescope, which has been... I think they started working on the James Webb Telescope 30 years ago. So it's been a very, very long time that they've been working on this telescope. And they finally launched it way back on Christmas on 2021. And everything had to go right. It had to get into position right, and the sail had to unfold, and it had to calibrate right and everything. And it had to not explode. All of the things, really. A lot of things to worry about. But as you can see here, everything went right because we were getting our first images. I think I saw something where they actually have, the James Webb Telescope actually still has much more fuel than they anticipated, which means that the James Webb Telescope can be in operation longer because it uses, I guess it uses fuel to adjust the, I don't know. Basically, this is one of the best case scenarios. Is what I've heard. Let's look at the pictures. Enough of me talking about something I clearly don't know very much about. Let's just look at the pretty space pictures. The Carina Nebula. That's nice. Stephen's Quartet, which is a group of 5 galaxies. It says somewhere that Sweeping tails of gas, dust, and stars are being pulled from several of the galaxies due to gravitational interactions. Most dramatically, Webb captures huge shockwaves as one of the galaxies, NGC 7318b, smashes through the cluster. Is that like this? Is that like this one? This one? I don't know. Oh god, I don't know anything. This is a disaster. We have the Southern Ring Nebula. It's nice. This isn't a picture, but the James Webb Telescope, it analyzed the atmosphere of a exoplanet, and it appears that the James Webb can give a more detailed observation of the atmospheres of exoplanets, which is exciting, because you could look for water and other such things and signs of life and whatnot. And this is the final image, which is, in my opinion, the most exciting. SMACS 0723. And I think this is the picture that is the deepest and sharpest infrared image of the distant universe to date. So you have this supermassive cluster of galaxies in the right here, and I think it's these galaxies over here that are warped, that are actually behind these galaxies, but because these galaxies are so massive, the light is actually like bending around these galaxies because this supermassive cluster like bends space so much. So like I think it's this one. It could be another one. I could be mistaken, but I think it's like this galaxy, which is like the oldest galaxy we've ever seen. It is. Wait, I have it here. It's several billion years old. 13.1 billion years old. Or the light that we are seeing is 13.1 billion years ago. So this is the this galaxy as it appeared 13.1 billion years ago. Obviously distorted, but you know, I think it's this one. I could be wrong. I could just be like making a fool out of myself. It could be like, I don't know, it could be like this one or something. 13.1 billion years. That's like way before the Earth formed. It's very exciting. And I think the how old does it say the supermassive cluster is? The galaxy cluster. I might be, I don't know if do they call it a supermassive cluster in the article, or am I just like making that phrase up? Well, anyways, it's a cluster of galaxies in the middle. The cluster of galaxies is, the light is 4.6 billion years ago. So not as old, but still pretty old. Let's move on to our next story, which is some more science news. I think this is science news. It's the UN gave a report about the world population. They predict that the world population is going to hit 8 billion people by the end of the year. November 15th, 2022 is when it is predicted that the global population will hit 8 billion. That's very specific. November 15th. I would at least do like a little room for error. But okay. And there's a ton of other fun facts that the UN report has found. For example, India is set on course to surpass China as the world's most populous country in 2023. There are some more insights that have been generated. More than half of the projected increase in the global population up to 2050 will be concentrated in only 8 countries: the Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, and the Philippines, and the United Republic of Tanzania. Countries of sub-Saharan Africa are expected to contribute more than half the increase anticipated through 2050. The Liu Zimen, the UN Under-Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, warned that rapid population growth makes eradicating poverty, combating hunger and malnutrition, and increasing the coverage of health and education systems more difficult. The report also said, it said somewhere, that the rate at which the population is growing is actually slowing down. The global population is growing at the slowest rate since 1950, having fallen to less than 1% in 2020, which I'm just going to say is probably a good thing, actually, because, the Earth does in fact have limited resources, and it can only support a certain amount of people. So maybe it's good that the population isn't just going to go up exponentially forever. And that we are all just going to run out of resources. 8 billion people. That's a lot. That's a lot of people, in my opinion. Let's move on to the next story. This isn't the next story. This is just a tweet from Elon Musk, which is kind of related. This is back from May of this year, and he's responding to an article about how Japan's population actually fell in 2021 by 644,000. Elon Musk writes, "At risk of stating the obvious, unless something changes to cause the birth rate to exceed the death rate, Japan will eventually cease to exist. This would be a great loss for the world." And with that, let's move on to our next story. Arizona makes it illegal for bystanders to record cops at close range. Critics say the law gives police too much discretion. So there was a law that was passed in Arizona where essentially it is illegal to record police closer than 8 feet away. So you have to stand 8 feet away from the reaction. And people that violate this risk being charged with a misdemeanor and incurring fines of up to $500, jail time of up to 30 days, or probation of up to a year. And it does offer a caveat somewhere where if you're somehow involved in the action, or if you're like in a car that has been stopped by the police, you can record from less than 8 feet. I'm trying to find exactly where it says. It says it somewhere. Additionally, anyone recording activity from an enclosed structure on private property still has the right to record with police within 8 feet, unless law enforcement determines that the person is interfering or is not safe for them to be in the area. The person involved in the police activity, someone being questioned, arrested, or handled police, can record as long as it doesn't interfere with police actions. The same extends to anyone recording while in a vehicle involved in a police stop. So that's what this article says. So let's talk about this for a little bit. So at first when I read this, it seemed reasonable, but the more I thought about it, it does make me a little uncomfortable, because I feel like this law does put a lot of burden on the people recording, and I think it even disincentivizes people from recording police interactions, which generally I'm against, because I feel like the police should have some degree of transparency, right, in their actions. And of course, this article does mention, George Floyd. A big reason about why there was such a outrage is just because there was people filming, right? George Floyd being killed. And there probably wouldn't have been the same reaction, I would imagine, if no one had been allowed to record it, that interaction. So This does make me a little bit uncomfortable, because I feel like it does give the police a lot of discretion, and I think like there's just a lot of like questions I have, like what happens if a police officer like approaches you as you're recording? Do you have to like remain 8 feet away, or can they arrest you because they walked towards you? It does seem kind of ridiculous that they would try to arrest you by walking towards you, but I'm sure at some point that's going to happen. But you know, it's probably fine. Speaking of Arizona, I have this other article from Arizona, which is kind of funny. Educators no longer need a college degree to begin teaching in Arizona public schools. Yay! Basically, they need to be in the process of getting a degree in order to teach at a public school. And I think a big reason why they decided to do this was because there is a big teacher shortage. You know, the low pay, lack of respect, and lack of resources. And also, you know, the whole COVID thing where teachers were treated horribly. I think that has definitely had a negative impact on the teaching profession. So obviously the solution is to make it so that teachers can teach without having a degree. Yeah, a person only needs to be enrolled to get their college degree to begin teaching in public schools. There's one last thing I have to say about this. It would be a lot of work teaching in a public school and trying to get your degree, in my opinion. It just seems like a lot of work. But, you know. Let's move on to our next story. Teachers are heroes. Yay. This man here, he lit his camper on fire and defaced his own garage to appear targeted due to Trump flag. He had a Trump flag flying on his camper, I believe, and he found his garage defaced and his camper on fire. Well, it turns out just recently a court has determined that it found this man guilty of basically orchestrating this whole event himself. I believe in order to get insurance money, because he submitted insurance claims totaling more than $300,000, but he only received $61,000. He also yielded more than $17,000 from 2 GoFundMe accounts. Yeah, he claimed that people set fire to his camper because it had a Trump 2020 flag displayed on it. But yeah, he was charged with 2 counts of wire fraud in connection with the fire that took place on September 23rd, 2020. And you can see his garage here that was vandalized by himself. It says Biden 2020. Biden, I don't know if you know this, but 2020 has already passed. It would make more sense to say Biden 2024, don't you think? Seems like a lot of work. Doesn't he also know that like the fire department can like determine how fires start? He's also wearing a mask, which is interesting. Let's move on to our next story. Disturbing. Weed killer ingredient tied to cancer found in 80% of U.S. urine samples. The CDC study finds glyphosate, a controversial ingredient found in weed killers, including popular Roundup brands, present in samples. Oh, God. Okay, no, I can just press that. Okay. More than 80% of urine samples drawn from children to adults in a U.S. health study contained a weed-killing chemical linked to cancer, a finding scientists have called disturbing and concerning. The report by a unit of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention found that out of 2,310 urine samples taken from a group of Americans intended to be a representative of the U.S. population, 1,885 were laced with detectable traces of glyphosate. This is the active ingredient in herbicides sold around the world, including the widely used Roundup brand. Almost a third of the participants were children ranging from 6 to 18. This is very concerning because obviously I don't know how common it is to use Roundup, but obviously I don't think 80% of people are using Roundup in their own lawn, which is, before I read this article, I would have thought that the only way to be exposed to Roundup is to like apply it to your lawn yourself, and I thought that was like the only way to be exposed to it. But yeah, now that I think about it, there can be runoff from your lawn that ends up in like water and like drinking water and such, and it can end up in the local environment where it then finds your way into its body. 80% of people have glyphosate. You can't escape it. More than 200 million pounds of glyphosate are used annually by U.S. farmers on their fields. Oh, okay. So I think this is primarily driven by farmers, right, that use glyphosate on their fields, and it ends up as runoff and goes into like drinking water and things. And also residues of glyphosate has been found documented in an array of popular foods made with crops sprayed with glyphosate, including baby food. So obviously glyphosate can remain on food and end up in your body when you eat. It's very concerning. So there you go. Oh my god. I think it's pretty clear that I didn't read the article ahead of time. Because if I had read it, I would have known that it was caused more by farmers than by weed killer on residential lawns. Okay, let's move on to our next story. Derbyshire Cafe threatened over blasphemous sandwich. What is this blasphemous sandwich that we speak of? They have a bunch of like punny names, right? Their names for all their sandwiches are puns, including "Don't go bacon my heart" and "Are you chicken me out?" and "Get your goat you've pulled." I don't get that one so much. Get your goat you've pulled. I don't get it. But anyways, what is this blasphemous sandwich's name? It's the Jesus Christ. It's been on the menu since last year. What is in this sandwich? This is important. What is in the sandwich? It's a caramelized onion chutney, mature cheddar, and mozzarella sandwich. The Jesus Christ. Last week, the sandwich name on the cafe's outdoor menu has been painted over in white paint, and the business has been sent a letter claiming to be from the Christian group threatening legal action. From a Christian group threatening legal action, sorry. The letter read, quote, "Our members have instructed us to write to you to ask you to remove the sandwich name Jesus Christ from your menu. Although our clients would prefer to settle this matter out of courts, there's clearly a case to answer here. Everyone in the United States Kingdom has the right to their beliefs without fear of discrimination. It is a basic human right that all institutions, including bakeries, have a duty to abide by and protect." Stating that the €4 sandwich name was an insult to Christianity. €4? That's like $4. Sorry. The letter demanded that to stop the author of the letter taking the matter further, the cafe needed to follow 4 steps outlined in this letter. These included, oh, this should be fun. Step 1, issue a public apology on the cafe's platforms, e.g. social media, website, etc., within 5 working days of the date of the letter. Remove the sandwich name and all mention of it from the cafe's menu within 10 working days of the date of the letter. Remove any mention of the name Jesus Christ from the sign standing on the Whaley Bridge Parish within 30 working days of the date of this letter, and make a donation of £300 to the Holy Trinity Church within 30 working days of the date of this letter. If I was the owner of this cafe and I had gotten this letter, I'd be like, no. What even is this? How do you think that you have the leverage to make these sort of demands? I'll keep reading from the article. The strongly worded letter claimed to be from the religious organization Christian Concerned, but here's where it gets wild. But this was later confirmed to be fake by Bridge Bakehouse on its social media. A spokesperson for the cafe said, so after investigations, it turns out the bizarre blackmail letter had nothing to do with the Trinity Church or Christian Concerned. It seems it was from an anonymous, disgruntled member of the local community. We would still love to find out who it was and if they had anything to do with the recent vandalism of their menu board. I would guess probably. In reference to the graffiti on the menu board, the cafe responded in good humor, posting on social media, to whoever has tried to cover up the Jesus Christ sandwich on our outdoor menu board with weight paint, can you please not? And I feel like that's a good response, basically, for the situation. Good job, cafe owner. You really handled it well. A 76 million year old dinosaur skeleton will be auctioned in New York City. Oh, isn't it pretty? Fossilized skeleton of a T-Rex relative. Also not a T-Rex. But I mean, pretty much a T-Rex. Most people will think that's a T-Rex. It's actually a Gorgosaurus. And I think it's one of the only complete fossils of a dinosaur that is owned privately. Nearly 10 feet tall and 22 meters long. Where would you even put this? You'd have to have a mansion. It wouldn't even be fun to have a Gregorius skeleton. Gorgosaurus. It wouldn't even be fun to have a dinosaur skeleton in your house because it'd be so stressful. Like, what if there's like a tornado or something? All of a sudden, you can't replace your dinosaur skeleton because it's like a one-of-a-kind object, and you can't buy one anywhere else. But it'd be super cool. It'd just be super stressful to have. It's estimated to be between $5 million and $8 million. This article, I think, is from quite a while ago, from or more than a week ago. So maybe it's sold by now. But there you go. Do you have $8 million? Do you want to buy a Gorgosaurus skeleton? Well, you might be in luck. That's essentially what I'm telling you. Let's move on. Now this is weird. A Georgia monument seen by some as satanic was damaged from a pre-dawn explosion. This was from a little bit ago, more than a week ago. The Georgia headstones. So let's head over to Wikipedia for a second. Okay, so let's talk about the Georgia guidestones a little bit because this is just like very bizarre. Okay, this like whole thing. So here they are. Back in June 1979, there was a anonymous man using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian, and he commissioned this structure, these Georgia Guidestones, and he wanted these stones to function as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. Basically, he thought that there'd be this like anonymous man thought that there would be some like sort of apocalypse on the earth like very soon, and that he wanted this structure to help guide people after this apocalypse. The company that he originally commissioned these guidestones from, they like didn't want to do it because they thought it was weird. So they charged like this really high price in order to like construct this monument. And to their surprise, he agreed to the price. So I guess this man really wanted to have these guidestones completed. And it was definitely over $100,000, equivalent to $373,361 in 2021. Christian delivered a scale model of the guidestones and 10 pages of specifications. And on March 22nd, 1980, the monument was unveiled by the Congressman Doug Bernard. Yeah, so what is actually going on about this monument? I'm sure you are wondering. So there's a message consisting of a set of 10 guidelines or principles that was engraved on the Georgia Guidestones in 8 different languages, one language on each face of the 4 large upright stones, moving clockwise around the structure from due north. These languages were English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, traditional Chinese, and Russian. The languages were chosen because they represented most of humanity, while Hebrew was chosen because of its connections to Judaism and Christianity. According to the monument's sponsors, the inscriptions were meant to guide humanity to conserve nature after a nuclear war, which the creators thought was an imminent threat. The inscriptions dealt with 4 main themes: governance and establishment of a world government, population and reproduction control, the environment, and human relationships to nature and spirituality. So why don't we just read the inscription on these guidestones? There's 10 of them. We'll just go through all of them. It reads, number 1, and these are the meant to guide humanity, remember, after a nuclear apocalypse. Meant to guide humanity. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Number 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number 4, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Maintain humanity under 500 million. So that's population control. And guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. That's eugenics. Don't know if you've noticed that, but that's quite shocking. Also, this does seem to hint at a world government, that there should be an establishment of a world government. Obviously, there are some people that don't like this, because this is like the New World Order, right? That's what they call it. Yeah. So these, one of the granite slabs, I guess, was bombed by someone. It was demolished. Oh, the Swahili/Hindi language slab was exploded, or was demolished by explosions on July 6, 2022. Can we see footage from the bombing? Ooh, now that should be fun. Boom. It seemed like a lot of work. Even if I very passionately disagreed with all of the messages, the Georgia Guidestones just made me furious or whatever, I wouldn't go to the work of committing a felony or whatever by and getting explosives to demolish it. It just seems like a lot of work, doesn't it? Anyways, let's move on to our next story, which is sad and also kind of funny, but mostly sad. It's about Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the worst state for women, and one state senator wants to know why. So there was a study. What was it done by? Wallet Hub published a study in late February. Out of the 50 U.S. states, Oklahoma comes in 51st, because I guess it includes Washington, D.C. The study looked at poverty, voter turnout, and life expectancy among 25 other metrics. And Oklahoma, the worst place for women. Senator Jessica Garvin was shocked. The study also noted that childcare costs in Oklahoma are more than college tuition. It's very expensive to raise a child. A lack of childcare was the 3rd most reported reason for unemployment in our state for women. It is a little surprising, though, I think. Oklahoma is the worst state for women? Really? I guess it kind of makes sense. Anyways, let's move on to our next story, which is about the president of Japan. He was shot a week ago. He was just at a campaign event. Shinzo Abe who was 67. He was campaigning he was giving a campaign speech in the western city of Nara ahead of an upcoming election, when someone just came up and shot him in the back of the head. In the back of the head? I think it was in the chest, actually, that he was shot. Tetsuya Yamagami was the man who shot him. I think he had homemade firearms that he had. It is very surprising because Japan has very strict gun laws, and actually not a lot of gun violence in Japan. It is very hard to get firearms in Japan, so just not a lot of incidents involving firearms, I guess. But yeah, it was a homemade gun. But like, you can't just go up and assassinate a politician in these days. Like, I was shocked to hear it. And you can see here that Shinzo Abe, he was just standing in the middle of the street. And there is video. There were like police guards around, or there were like some sort of bodyguards that went and tackled the shooter. Like, how did the shooter, like, how was he able to like pull out a gun and shoot Shinzo Abe? I'm so confused. I don't think, maybe some people know, but I sure don't. How could you just shoot the Prime Minister of Japan? And I did read a little bit about Shinzo Abe. He was a nationalist. He wanted to make it so that Japan, has a strong military. He wanted to, like, the Constitution of Japan has it so that Japan has to be like a pacifist sort of nation without a large military, and that was implemented after World War II. Yikes. But Shinzo Abe wanted to revise the Constitution and build up a strong army, I guess. He wasn't able to do that, but he was able to... I think it did say that he was able to strengthen the economy. Where did it say that? It said it's somewhere here. Maybe in this article. Oh my god, I'm getting my articles mixed up. This is so bad. Yeah, he had a economic agenda called Abenomics. And he wanted to jumpstart the economy after more than 2 decades of deflation, which involved ramping up government spending and monetary easing. He also pushed for reforms like cutting corporate taxes and red tape, as well as liberalizing sectors of the economy. And to his credit, I think the... and he opened up the traditionally male-dominated labor market to Japanese women. So I just thought it was interesting to kind of outline his sort of prime ministership. I don't know what it's called when it's a prime minister, not a president. But anyways, there you go. And that's all I really want to talk about it, because I feel like this episode's been going on for a very long time. Let's talk about our last article. I mean, as you know, I always like to pick a really interesting article for the very last article, and today's week is no different. I've picked a real banger this week. So there was a New York 14-year-old. Well, let's back up a little bit. There's a contest in New York to design a new I Voted sticker in a New York county. And there was a 14-year-old student that submitted his submission. And people really like his submission. The vast majority of the votes so far, of the 168,000 votes that have been cast by this year's online contest, have been for this local student's Hudson Rowan design, which features a multicolored red-eyed human atop spider legs next to the phrase, "I voted." Rowan's design has more than 157,500 votes as of Monday afternoon. The next most popular, the 6 options, had about 3,600 votes. That's so sad for the guy in second place. And the student whose name is Hudson Rowan. He was saying he was surprised because he did not think he would do well at all, just because it was so different from all of the others. Yeah, I did not think I was going to get as much attention as I did, he said, since mine was very different from the others. I didn't think mine was going to get a lot of attention because of that, but I was wrong. It was exactly the opposite. Someone tweeted, "This is how voters feel about politics right now," and I thought it was almost like the best way to summarize it. It sort of is exactly how we're all feeling about politics right now, he said. That was by John Quigley, the Republican commissioner for the Ulster County Board of Elections, who said that last quote. But I've teased it long enough. Let's see the actual design of this kid's I voted sticker. Bam. There it is. Wow. That's a lot to process. Well, congratulations to whichever New York County is now going to get this, probably going to get this new I voted sticker. And that's all the news I have today. Wow, what fun.